looking at human-wildlife conflict across, let's say, the southern part of our continent, and even up into the East African part, there's quite a big difference. We in South Africa are fortunate that human deaths and human injuries are almost, I wouldn't say completely, almost null. And again, I would say that the reason for that is we respect fencing, and we respect the separation that has occurred in this context here. There is human-wildlife conflict in South Africa in terms of crop damage and crop losses and livestock losses from predators. That's where you would get the most serious human-wildlife conflict in South Africa. The moment you start to look into Zimbabwe and elsewhere, and because of certain programs that were not very smart now in Malawi and in Zambia, you start to see actual human suffering, human death, and at numbers that I don't think are acceptable. Tangible numbers per year, 30, 40 people in a country dying per year from human-wildlife conflict, many more being injured. Obviously, those deaths causing either it's loss of children or it's loss of breadwinners, or doesn't matter what the loss is. Once it's a human loss, it's a tragedy. Now, can that be solved by trade ban lifts? Possibly, because funding always helps. Funding is always a step in the direction of solving problems, because no matter what solution you find, there will always be a cost factor to it. So why would you waste a resource, lose the funding money, and then sit with a problem that could be mitigated if funding was available? So trade bans are counterproductive. More importantly, a lot of the human-wildlife conflict that has been thrust upon poor rural Africans is a direct result of people who are trying to push the trade bans now against the evidence that the populations are now in excess. Once you've got an excessive population, your degree of conflict escalates radically, because the interaction between humans and animals increases, obviously. And you've got these people who push the philosophy of don't touch, hands off conservation, that are now trying to mitigate their argument by finding more room for animals to roam in. That's not going to solve the problem. Creating wildlife corridors through human habitation is going to just cause more conflict. Why on earth should a poor rural child be scared to step out of their house at night just to go do some errand that might be necessary outside of their bungalow, their kaya, in their village? I've seen all of the mitigation people want to thrust on these rural Africans that will help them not allow the elephants into their pastures, in between their houses, not allow predators to be in that area. But all of it is literally replacing the jail that they say the animals are in with the jail that the humans must be in now. It makes no sense to me that. The trade ban would keep the numbers at more reasonable numbers, because you would be harvesting sustainably on an ongoing basis. You could keep your wildlife numbers in check at a density that makes sense and in places where they belong. Simultaneously, you would be able to find the funding to put up some strategic fencing in places that would keep the animals and the people separate. Let a child be able to walk to school in safety. If they have to go down to a river to fetch water, find a solution like putting a borehole in, that costs money. Or find a solution to make safe places along the river where they're not going to encounter on the way there or back a hippopotamus perhaps, or a crocodile at the river, or a lion, or whatever the case may be. So when we've got excess of a resource and we are banned from using that resource, it's pure waste. And in the case of human-wildlife conflict, it's pure tragedy, human tragedy on the ground, and in numbers that in my mind are unacceptable.